Hello, and welcome back to Soulstar Radio. I'm Jacquelene Closemore, your host, and I'm coming to you live from not quite Melbourne. We're in the northern suburbs here today. I'm back out at Whittlesea for the last time actually on air from this location ever in this particular spot, this house. It's been sold. We did it. We sold it with 22-day settlement, which is insane unless you're trusting your faith. And we have then bought another place and we're moving in 3 days earlier. Well, it's been a whirlwind, but that's called putting your faith to the real test of are you walking your talk as well. So I always like to, well, actually live by a plan, but this kind of took its own place and it's about trust. And so my guest today, I'm very honoured to have quite a beautiful energy in the guest that's coming on air with me very shortly. He's someone who I feel really listens to that instinct and intuition and really moves with energy a lot. And he's coming to you live from America. We have William Stillman on the line. Are you there, Mr. William Stillman?
Yes. Hi, Jacqueline. Delighted to be with you.
It's beautiful to have you on air. I was just seeing all the emerald greens and the different colours, while we're waiting to come on air, and I'm just sort of twiddling my thumbs, just looking out the window, and I'm going, whoa, look at this energy. This is really good. You clearly, for you, it's this energy of listening to your own instinct and following through with that as well. And can you tell me more about what got you started on your pathway, in spirituality, and then we can go in, of course, to what you do and from there. But what got you into this sort of field, would you say, and when did you first discover your gifts?
Thank you. Well, I'd like to say that I am a work in progress. And, I really only started doing the psychic work professionally when I was 40, and I'm going on 54 now. So I'm living proof that it's never too late to tap into that aspect of your personhood if the desire, not desperation, but if the desire is there. But I started out life as an intensely, painfully, exquisitely sensitive child. One of my earliest recollections of the degree of that sensitivity was being about 5 or 6 years old and sitting in a church pew with my parents and sobbing and not being able to contain my emotion. And I overheard my parents whispering, and they just picked me up and we left in the middle of service, which was a bit shocking to me. I didn't expect that. And I never told anyone what I was experiencing, but there was a reason why I was crying as I was. I had been looking up and off to my left at this glorious, terrible stained glass window of the crucifixion, and I was grieving for the pain that Jesus must have endured just looking at the window. And so that's the type of kid that I was. I was very introverted. I was very quick to tear up and cry. I remember hearing Peter, Paul, and Mary songs, Where Have All the Flowers Gone, and Puff the Magic Dragon, and being struck by how melancholy they were. And sobbing as a child at those lyrics. And I would have little premonitions, and then I would have some strange dreams. I remember 2 distinct dreams on different occasions. I would, in the dream, be on the front lawn of my home, and this was 2 different residences. And in the dream, I would be picking coins up off of the grass, and the next day have that actually happen. And wondering how on earth those coins got there to begin with. And then when I was about 11 years old and on the precipice of adolescence, that's the age when young people tend to become more sophisticated and more judgmental. They form cliques, and those cliques can sometimes be very cynical and exclusive. And I very, very quickly became odd man out. And I was bullied. I was verbally abused. I was physically harassed. And my speech and body language were publicly mocked and mimicked in front of cafeteria staff and school bus drivers and teachers who did nothing. And this went on virtually every day for about 7 to 8 years of my life. I became a recluse.
Yep.
My 3 younger brothers played with other children at the playground directly across the street from our house, and those other children didn't even realize they had an older brother because I was, for all intents and purposes, invisible. And I became drawn to dark things. This was at a time when the movie The Exorcist had just been released, and it was extremely controversial, if you remember.
Oh, yeah.
I became very attracted to knowing everything that I could about that. Growing up in the 60s and 70s, you had horoscopes, you had Jean Dixon, the famous clairvoyant, and you had the amazing Kreskin. And then everything else was lumped into the category of the occult. And that tended to be, devil worship and witchcraft and vampires and so on. And that's the stuff that I became attracted to because I was reflecting back what was being projected upon me instead of finding faith in my faith, instead of finding solace in that little boy who sobbed for Christ. I went down an entirely different path, Jacquelene, and I began to become very cold and hard and cynical and ugly. And I was visited upon by a phantom every night. I could hear his footsteps as I was trying to fall asleep. And I would see him standing in my bedroom doorway, about 6.5 feet tall. Mm-hmm. A black silhouette with a floor-length black coat and a broad black rimmed hat. And his sole intention was to seduce me into recruitment. And in exchange, he promised me power over my tormentors. So you can imagine that was immensely attractive to me at that age. Although intrinsically I knew I must resist him, but he was very persistent. And I also need to stress for our listeners that this was not in the least frightening. And that was part of his strategy because that would have undermined his purpose in being present. It was unnerving, it was unpleasant, but it was not terrifying in any way. And so after a while, he did fade away. I actually developed a very angry-looking red mark in the center of my red palm that coincided with all of this, that the family doctor could not explain what it was. But that impressed upon me an attitude that stuck with me for many, many years. And it wasn't until I was in my late 30s when I decided I don't want to behave like this any longer. I want to become an improved version of my old self. And I desired to reclaim my relationship with God. I desired to reconnect and get plugged in to my own spirituality. And once I made that commitment and honored that commitment, because it's not just a mantra, it's a lifestyle, everything shot through the roof. And I made up for decades in about 3 months. And that is when I reclaimed that sensitivity of that little boy who cried in the church pew 30-some years earlier. And it's been an amazing roller coaster ride ever since then.
Absolutely. And so this is a real story of facing not only your light, but also your shadow, which a lot of people They just want to look at the light, and you have to kind of be able to deal with your own light and darkness in order to know the true self, like the whole self. So that there's a very, very powerful experience you've got there. And so did you always know that you were empathic, and or at what point did you realise, hey, look, I'm not alone in this, and actually I'm not weird, or however it is that you felt with this? Like it's a very strong, intense experience you've gone through, but what brought you out into that sense of, okay, I now know what this is?
Again, I think it was a gradual process, but I connected with my primary spirit guide, to be honest with you, and I christened him with a name of my choosing, and we became fast friends. And I was being mentored and tutored in dreams on virtually a nightly basis. So I was being given problems to solve of a spiritual nature. I was being shown the nature of human behavior and why people do certain things that they do. And I began to learn the language of spirit, which for me is like celestial charades. It is a language that is cryptic, iconic, symbolic, and I am completely self-taught. And so I kept trying to reach out to people to help me figure out what was going on, or if there was any similarities between what was going on for me and how they began emerging and evolving, and no one would respond. So I think I was destined to go it alone, which I did. So I'm totally self-taught. But Jacquelene, it's been absolutely amazing. The psychic work, the mediumship. I remove pain from people with my hands and prayer. I've talked to dogs. And wrote a book about that. It's just been an extraordinary experience, and I am so blessed and so privileged to be who I am and to have found myself again after all of that time.
Absolutely. No, that's magnificent and very powerful, because you, and for the audience listening, you can really feel every word that William's saying, and where it's coming from, this heart space with you. It's a real authenticity, I guess, and that's what I look for a lot in the guests that I have, is that authenticity of message and the purity of that. And so what would you suggest to people who perhaps are going through their own big journey of discovery and are at that point where maybe they're a bit lost still? Is there an exercise or even simply an intention that you would sort of recommend that they sit and do for those that are listening that are still in that not quite there stage, we might call it?
Yes. Well, I would encourage them to have faith in their faith. I would encourage them, again, not to be desperate, but to have the desire. So it's going to unfold at a pace with timing that is going to be accessible to each unique individual. So let's not force it. Let's not rush it. There's a blessing that I say before I do any work, and it includes the language, let me be of good and great service to the individual, the client, the audience with whom I'm working, so that we in turn might render great and glorious service to others through the grace of all that we have been, all that we are presently, and all that we are becoming. Because you see, the authenticity comes from the desire to employ our spiritual gifts and talents to be of service. That's why we're here.
Beautiful. Beautifully said too, William. We've got our first caller on the line, and they might be the only one we get time for, but that's okay. We've got Sierra on the line in California. Are you there, Sierra?
Yes, I am here. How are you?
Good, thank you, and welcome to the show. Was there a question that you wanted to ask William, or William, how would you like to proceed?
I think
There is actually.
Sierra's perfectly welcome to... Whoops, sorry, dear.
Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say Sierra is perfectly welcome to interject and ask her question.
Oh, absolutely, thank you. Just my question is I'm sure it's something that you get quite often as a request, or at least I would think you do. I have a son with somebody that I was previously in a relationship with, and no longer in that relationship now for a while. But I have been with a new man for the last 6 months or so, and I do love him very much, and I'm very happy in the relationship. My question is now, in the beginning of the relationship, there were very good signs that we got from the universe and some very positive things that were happening to kind of push our relationship forward. And then just kind of recently, within the last few months, it's all kind of flipped onto the opposite. We're having a lot of money troubles, job losses, some car issues. So I guess my question would be, is this something specific that maybe the energy is putting off to kind of give me a sign, or, which direction should I be going with this, is my opinion, because it does involve children on both of our ends.
Yes. So what I'm going to suggest to you, Sierra, is that this is a test of your commitment. That's what you're going through right now, this period of strife and struggle. And I also must tell you, it felt to me as though your current partner is in some way going to be taking in your son, or I don't know. I don't even know if this is possible, but this is what I was being shown the word adoption connected to your boy. So I don't know if that's a possibility, but that's what I see as potential. If not formally, then perhaps informally.
Absolutely, and that actually strikes quite a chord with me because in this relationship, my son went into it not being able to talk correctly, saying very minimal words, and had some behavioral issues. And, just within a few months of him being in my son's life, he's, gotten to the point where he's saying full sentences and is behaving much better, and he seems just like a more comfortable, happy child. So I definitely, that makes a lot of sense to me as well.
All right, my dear. Well, stick it out. You're going to come through this rough patch. It's probably going to be about another month until this all wraps up.
Okay.
So hang in there, please.
All righty. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Sierra, for calling in. And it's really interesting because just a moment ago, and we started the show talking about this incredible sensitive period of your life as a child. And, of course, I always find that the callers synchronistically line up with whatever we've been talking about as far as that sensitivity of you being a sensitive child. And it just feels also that child may be sensitive there, William. Are you kind of getting that feeling at all?
I was seeing the word autism connected to this child, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Really dialed into a higher dimension in a way. But, yeah, it's just quite amazing. So what sort of things do you recommend if people find that they've got a child who, is sensitive, is finding themselves overwhelmed by some of the input and also even the energies of other people or the songs and things like that? What sort of things would you recommend that they do to help their child?
I think that child needs to have a safe space to go to where he or she can decompress and just have some quiet time to relax and indulge themselves in doing whatever it is that is soothing, quelling, and calming for him or her. That child also needs to be believed and not dismissed when he or she has the courage to self-report some unconventional experiences, because the world needs more sensitive people in it, quite frankly, and we don't want to see that weaned out of a child, as so often is the case. It's, as I said, as you heard my testimony, I was blocked up for decades. And so I think it's terribly important that we nurture that and cultivate that and not desensitize it.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely how I would also go about it as well. And sometimes I find that some parents actually overindulge or dramatise what the child's saying as well. So there does have to be that balance, doesn't there?
Absolutely, yes. I was just going to say, I am very skeptical myself. To be quite honest, I am. It has to be pretty spectacular to blow me away. I have very high standards of excellence for myself. And I do think there are some people that get awfully carried away, and not everything is something, as you know, too. And so, we really do need that balance with, keeping perspective, keeping grounded in reality, because we do have to function in this world until we transition to the next. And, I'm all about let's just keep it real. And sometimes a bad dream is just a bad dream.
Yes, absolutely.
And sometimes a penny is just a penny. It's not, a sign. So we just kind of have to keep things in proper context, I think.
Absolutely, and I love how you use that skepticism, because it does keeps it really not. It keeps you functioning and grounded, as you're saying, because when you're seeing really unreal things and you're that tuned in, the skepticism becomes healthy, very healthy in that situation, because you then sort of go, and I have this conversation with myself, I don't know whether you do, William, but you've got to go and do this. And then the other part goes, shut up. What do you want from me? I don't have to do that. And the other part goes, shut up, do it. And I'm like, all right, I'll listen to you. And then sure enough, it comes out. So this was this whole thing with the town we've ended up living in. And it was like, oh, that seems too far. And I got told, no, you must go there. And then when I went there, it had certain very physical symbols in the town that just, wow, it's like, no, this is home for me. So I find that following of your instincts really, really important. So it just helps balance it out when you get the proof, I guess, doesn't it?
Yes, and I call those alignments, those little guideposts, those little signposts, those symbols, those mini coincidences. If we pay attention, oftentimes they do add up to something when you connect the dots. So I'm glad to hear you say that.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, and I'm just also, I might have to get you back on the show at a later stage because we're running out of time to talk about your connection with animals and how you are able to connect in and see what's happening for them as well, and particularly with dogs. But it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. It's a beautiful energy you've got there, and it really does come through that authenticity, because authenticity I often see as expressed through the heart chakra. And so with you, I was seeing a lot of the green. I was seeing other colours as well, but a lot of the green and that heart, and that comes through in what you do. And so for those who are looking to develop, it's just really important to tune into your heart, and if your intention is coming from your heart, as what William's been doing, you'll feel that sort of same level of energy that's going on there. So thank you so much for that. And how can people reach you, William, if they're looking to find out more about you or have an appointment, or do you run workshops?
Thank you, Jacqueline. They can find me at my website, which is simply my name, williamstillman.com, STILLMAN. And if people click on the Facebook icon, they'll get my daily original inspirational quotes that I get in my meditations each day.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And so do you work privately with people as well, or is it more connecting and sending the message out?
I do occasionally do private consultations. My primary focus right now is theatrical venues, performing arts centers, and so on, with large audiences. I love it.
Beautiful. Absolutely wonderful. We'll have the links online on the Soulstar Media website and Facebook page, and I'll also be posting an excerpt from one of William's books very soon in the next week. And so it'll be an absolute pleasure to have the ability for people to connect with you further through there. So if you haven't quite caught everything, you can find more on our Facebook and website pages. So thank you so much once again, William, for coming on air, and it's been an absolute pleasure.
It's been a great delight, Jacqueline. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And so for connecting with us next week, we'll be on air. We have Rocky Cogfrost from Canada coming on air. He's, I think, at Toronto. We will find out where he's from. And I look forward to connecting with you again. Same bat time, same bat channel next week. Thank you for listening, and do feel free to connect with us online in the week. Otherwise, catch us next time.